Hey y'all, I want to welcome you to a new episode of Crown and Convos, where every jewel you receive here gets you one step closer to receiving your crown from God. Now, y'all, these jewels are not intended for you to just take, wrap them up in a bow, and give them to somebody for the next holiday. But what you want to do is take them back to God and start your own conversation with Him, where He will provide you with insight, instruction, and increase. I am your host, Aaliyah, and I'm so happy to be joining you today. So, you guys, it has been a while. I took a much needed break. I feel like I'm still on that break, but this was something that God wanted me to come forward with, this word. And I'm going to be honest, this word is a little too much for me because it calls for me to be a little more vulnerable than I would like, than I would prefer. And I know I've been vulnerable with you guys before. I've shared some things about myself. But what He's going to have me share today is something that I hold personal to my heart. It's some things that I kind of talk about with people around me, but not necessarily something that I would talk about on the internet in any type of way, shape, or form. So I had to ask him over and over, like, are you sure you want me to talk about this? And he was like, yeah. So we're doing it. So the title of this message is God is giving you a choice, choose wisely. And it stems from some recent events that have been going on in my life. Now, before I start, I do want to say we are still in the series of Why Does God Make Us Wake? So I will be returning back to that. But now to go back to this. So you guys know my best friend. I have talked to y'all about him several times. I have told y'all about several different things that I have learned just from dealing with him and how God has humbled me when it comes to dealing with him. I never told y'all that God told me that He was my husband. So in October 5th, 2021, God told me that my best friend is my husband. There's been a lot of back and forth. I had a really hard time accepting it. Not because I didn't love my best friend. Actually, at that time, I kind of had a crush on him. But I had a crush on somebody else as well. And I felt like that person was a better fit for me. And so I kind of ran from it. But then when I started accepting the fact that he was going to be my husband, I was very frustrated that it was not happening in the way or in the time that I thought it was supposed to happen. So when God told me October 5th, 2021, by December 31st of that same year, I was supposed to have my ring. Like, I didn't know nothing about a kingdom spouse journey or a marriage journey. I'm thinking when God told me this was it, this was going to be an immediate thing. And 2 years later, I still have a ring. So it has not been an immediate thing. It has been a journey. But in hindsight, I can look back and say, at that time, God gave me that promise. I was not prepared to be nobody's wife. I just wasn't. And at that time, my best friend was not, my best friend was not prepared to be anybody's husband. He just wasn't. So I start off saying that. I start off with that. And but God is doing things. God is moving, even in ways that we just know that it's new. Like, okay, we've never been this close before. We're having healthier confrontation and healthier communications versus times in the past where we just could not get along or we just could not compromise. So we could see those little things, but I don't think nobody's thinking God is really like doing this, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just, I could see some things, God doing some things now that He absolutely could not do last year or the year before because I wasn't ready for it or my best friend wasn't ready for it. And I could see God entrusting us with certain moments now. And it feels good. It's honestly, to me, it's an honor that God still trusts this journey for me, because waiting for your husband, knowing who your husband is or knowing who your wife is and waiting for them, that is not an easy journey. I don't care what nobody say, that is not an easy journey, right? Because I've had to watch my best friend go off and be in a relationship with somebody else. I've had to watch him love on somebody else. I've had to, and mind you, in this whole time, God is not really allowing me to date or not really allowing me to open my heart up to somebody else, and is still encouraging me and wanting me to open my heart up to my best friend while he's in a relationship with somebody else, or while he's just not paying me no attention. That is tricky. That is not like that's not some easy thing. I don't care what nobody say, that's not easy. And a lot of times I questioned my sanity. I questioned whether I was hearing from God right. I questioned my own self-worth, my own self-esteem, because when you learn to love yourself, and when you learn your self-worth, you just don't put yourself in certain situations. So I would never be out here, again, because I have before, but I would never be out here trying to love on somebody who's not paying me attention. I've done that before, right? And certain situations like that make me feel like, dang, I must be back to not loving myself, because why would I, you know what I'm saying? Like these are the type of thought processes that I have had throughout these 2 years, throughout this journey. So it has been a tricky thing. It is not an easy thing. And eventually I will come on here and share my journey, share my testimony. In all honesty, I wasn't ready to share none of this right now because I don't have a ring yet. Right? So I don't want to talk about no marriage or no kingdom spouse or nothing like that. And I'm still not married. And I'm still not even in a relationship with him. This is why I say this episode is going to be kind of tricky and real vulnerable for me, because the first time I mentioned that he was my husband was supposed to be when he became my husband, and I came on here to show y'all a ring, right? You didn't see nothing. So that's a lot for me. This is a lot. So, but again, God is giving you a choice to choose wisely. And so for me, I'm choosing him all over again. I'm rededicating my life to God all over again. And that means if this is the way that he chooses to do this, then I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to question him, but I'm going to trust him. And I'm going to know that he has something up his sleeve. He's doing something. All right. So now that I got the background stuff out the way, I've told y'all in, I think, the episode where it says God says to pace yourself. You are moving, changes are being made, but you need to be still so you can see it. I told you that God has blessed me with a man, my best friend, who is in my son's life as a positive role model, as a father figure and stuff like that. He's the only consistent man that my son knows, right? So he's there. He'll help me with discipline. He'll help me with talking with my son. He has his own relationship with my son outside of me. I don't have no bearings on the relationship that they have with each other, which is great. And so I decided that I wanted to celebrate him for Father's Day. So I planned a whole day for him with a pedicure, a massage, and a dinner. So I went out of town. I went to Jamaica from the 14th to the 18th. So I missed Father's Day. So when I came back, we celebrated it together. So we went to get the pedicure first. My son was with us. But on the way to get the massage, of course, I took my son to my sister's, and it was just me and my best friend. So the date, I'm just going to be honest, it was beautiful. We've never been with each other in that type of setting. Like, we've gone out to a restaurant before, but it felt different. It felt different to me. I don't know why, it just felt different. And at the end of the night, it felt a little too good. It felt a little too good. My best friend and I did cross a couple boundaries within our friendship, right? Things got a little physical. And let me say this, I've been celibate for 3 years, so I'm not interacting with nobody in no type of way. But also, God has saved me for my best friend. So when things crossed, first base, second base, or whatever, however we want to put it, I was willing and ready to go all the way. I was ready to do the do. And I didn't feel bad about it. We stopped, like, we did not. But I wanted to. That was the only regret I had about that night, that we did not go all the way. And I had an honest conversation with God about it. Like, I'm like, I wish we would have went all the way. I want to repent, but I can't repent because I don't feel bad about it. Like, I really wish we would have went all the way. I mean, I've been saving myself for him all this time anyways. And while that wouldn't have been the time for me to do it, because I want to do it on my wedding night, right? That wouldn't have been the time for me to do it. But I would have been okay with it, because it would have been him, and it would have been a great ending to an amazing night. So I had the conversation with God about it, and this is why I love God so much, because he's so gracious. He's so gracious. He didn't hold that against me. He knew how I felt in my flesh. He knew, and I'm like, Lord, you the one made me love this man like that. You the one made me love him like this and want him like this. So like, I'm struggling right now. I was really in my flesh, y'all. Like, I was on fire. I was on fire for him. And I was ready. And I was even ready to the point where this happened last Tuesday on June 26th. Today is July 2nd. So I was even prepared to ask him to come spend the night with me on his off days. He's off on Mondays and Tuesdays. So one of these days, following that event, I was prepared to ask him to come spend the night with me. And God knew my heart. He knew I didn't mean no wrong with it, but he knew that I was on fire. He knew that the love that he gave me for this man was ignited and open and just ready to go. And God had to humble me because he had to remind me that I'm supposed to be saving myself for marriage. And, you know, you have those scriptures in Songs of Solomon, do not awaken love before it's time. And you also have your instruction on how you are supposed to do things. God gives you the blueprint. So if I know, even if he is my husband, even knowing he's my husband, I know I'm not supposed to be intimate with him until the night of my marriage, until the night of my wedding. So why would I be so willing to disobey God just because God has allowed me to be in this space with him? And when I say allowed, I don't mean God tested or tempted me. I mean, God allowed me to spend this special moment with him. We are responsible for what happened. I would never put that on God. That was absolutely us in our flesh. But God allowed us the opportunity. We have never been on a beautiful date like this before. That has just never happened. It's never happened. So when I say God allowed us the opportunity, I mean, he allowed for this space for us to be in such a beautiful and vulnerable moment. Because I got to share, and when I say vulnerable, I got to share things with my best friend about how I felt about him being that father figure in my son's life. I also got to share things that I've been struggling with him, as far as like me remaining humble when I feel like he's being a butthole towards me. So I really got to like pour my heart and be vulnerable with him in this space. So this was an opportunity that God allowed to happen, and we just took advantage of it to the fullest. So God reminded me, and I ain't gonna hold you, God compared me to Adam and Eve, y'all. I was just like, all right, that's a little too much. He compared me to Eve for when she, you know, got Adam to bite the apple, knowing that they weren't supposed to do that. He let me know that. So let me put it like this. When I first met my best friend, when he came to the house for the first time, I said this message to him. I did not know what I was talking about, but I said this to him. I said, a woman can get a man to do anything she wants him to do, good or bad. If she say it the right way, if she do it the right way, and he love her, she can get him to do anything she want him to do. And he was like, nah, I don't. I was like, you just ain't experienced it. You ain't loved that person yet. And so I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't even know about femininity and masculinity and influencing the man to do X, Y, Z. I did not know nothing about none of that, y'all. I'm just talking. I'm just having a conversation with him. And what I'm talking about is the influence of a godly wife. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 4, and God is taking me all the way off because this was not even a scripture that was supposed to be read right now. In 1 Peter 3, verse 4, it says, you should clothe yourselves instead with the beauty that comes from within, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is so precious to God. This is how the holy women of old made themselves beautiful. They put their trust in God and accepted the authority of their husbands. Let me go up to verse 2, 1 through 2, because that's where In the same way, you wives must accept the authority of your husbands. Then, even if some refuse to obey the good news, your godly lives will speak to them without any words. They will be won over by observing your pure and reverent lives. So it's more so how you say it. You know, saying it in a nice little cute way or something like that, versus being a nagger, versus being aggressive in your speech. You can be assertive and still speak to your husband, your king, or your wife in a loving and gentle way. And that's what I was talking about, but I had no clue. God didn't even tell me I was his wife at that time. I had no clue. I didn't even want to be married, right? So I'm just talking. And this is one of the things that I have always desired this is one of the things that I've always looked for since God revealed to me that I was his wife. Because there are several times that God would bring that up to me. Remember when you said that? Like, that has to be built. So that love for me has to be built within him, right? Only God can change a heart. Only God can shift someone's heart towards a thing. So that love has to be built within him for me. But God was letting me know it's happening. And so you are Eve in this situation. You need to be careful, because you are able to get him to do stuff that he might not normally do. And it's not to take no responsibility or accountability off of him, because he a grown man. He's very strong with, I said what I said. I did what I did. I don't regret it. So this is not that. He's responsible for his own physical being. But me, knowing what God is doing within me, I sometimes have to be the stronger person between us two. And so all the flirting that I was doing that night, he started it. I'm going to just say this right here. He started it. He started it. And if he watched this, you started this. But it then became a moment for me. All he had to do was unlock that door. When he unlocked it, I was coming through. And that's what happened. I came through. And with that being said, with that love being built, with that influence being built and being increased, I have to be careful, right? Because now he's going to be the person that's in the vulnerable spot. And I don't want to interfere with nothing that God is doing in his life. When it comes to me, when it comes to his own stuff, I don't want to interfere with that. And God even had to let me know, if you choose to do this, if you choose to go through with this, you risk losing the favor on your marriage. And you risk interfering with whatever he got going on. Whatever you got going on. I risk too much by allowing my flesh to go through for one night. I risk too much. God has told me too much about my marriage as far as businesses, wealth, generational wealth, breaking generational curses, our marriage being the blueprint to our families, for them showing what a godly marriage is supposed to look like. It's so much tied up in this stuff. I risk losing the favor on my marriage if I go through with this. And that hit me. But it hit me harder when God said that I could interfere with what he got going on. Because I don't want to do that. I don't want to steer nobody wrong. I don't care what I want. I don't care what I'm looking to get out of a situation. I don't want to steer nobody wrong. So knowing that me pushing for one night could interfere and take him so far off his track and get us both out of alignment with God's will, I ain't even want it no more. I ain't even want it no more. And so I had to start repenting, and I had to start praying for God to kind of put that fire out. Because now, like I said, I'm on fire for this man. I want this man. But you're telling me it's not right now. So I need you to help me, because I can't do this on my own. I mean, the door is open, God. It's open. So I need you to help me with this, right? So God just asked me a question. Or he just made a statement to me. And this is what has been helping me keep myself in check. God asked me to choose him. He didn't tell me to choose him. He didn't say, I'm going to take all of this away from you if you don't do what I'm telling you to do. He ain't yell at me. He ain't fuss me. He ain't rebuke me. He ain't do none of that. He just asked me to choose him. And this is why I say he's so gracious and he's so merciful, because how many of us can experience somebody doing something we told them not to do or we asked them not to do, and we just so graciously say, I'm just asking you to choose me. I'd be ready to turn up. I'd be ready to go off. God will humble me and so I don't act in that way. But initially in my flesh, I'm like, bro, what I just told you to do? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you do what I said to do? Right? Like, this is me as a human in my flesh. So God being so gracious and him giving me the opportunity to choose him, it humbled me so strongly. And it is something that I'm now holding on to for like the past 3 days. Anything that I want to do that does not support God, that does not support what he has asked, I ask myself to choose him. And I say, I'm choosing you, God. I'm choosing you, God. I'm just choosing him. I'm choosing you. I don't care how long this journey take no more. I don't care what all you're asking me to do. Even me coming up here and talking to y'all about my kingdom marriage and stuff like that, I'm choosing God. This is not something that I'm prepared to talk about at all. This is not something I'm prepared to talk about, because this is something personal to me. And it's bad enough when I shared it with people outside of the internet, my close family and friends, and some of the ones who rebuked it or talked down about it and really caused me to question my faith and question what I was hearing from God. But it's another thing when you put it on blast on the internet. It's something completely different. That's a whole new level of vulnerability that I'm not inspired to have. I'm not inspired to be that vulnerable with strangers. Not right now. Like I said, not till I get my ring. When I get my ring, I'll tell y'all everything that y'all want to know. But me not being in that space yet and still coming on here to talk about this is a lot for me. So, but I choose God. I choose him and I choose his way. And so what he has wanted me to come on here and talk to y'all about is just choosing God, choosing his way, whatever way that looks. And it's bringing me to another point about the date, because I'm watching myself be a woman or a version of myself that I never thought I could be, right? When you know how people have those lists of, oh, I want a man who will do X, Y, Z. I want a man to do this. I want a man to do that. We have those lists. We have those non-negotiables and we have those negotiables, but we have the things that we want. I'm someone who's very strong in what she wants. And so a lot of times I'm not budging from that. There's nobody who can make me budge from that. So one of the things is I don't like driving. That is so manly to me. Y'all, I'm like such a girly girl where the things that I don't want to do, I be like, that's manly. So I don't want to drive. I think driving is manly. I don't like driving. Guess what I did the whole night for the date with my best friend, except for when it became too dark and he drove. I drove him around. We drove my car. We drove to the pedicure spot. We drove to drop my son off to my sister. We drove to the massage place, and we drove to the restaurant. He only drove when we was leaving the restaurant. I drove the whole time. And some days afterwards, I was just thinking like how last year that would have been a no-go for me. Driving with a man in the car? Oh, how disgusting. That would have been a no-go for me. But I'm like, I could do that because my best friend drives so much. He's always on the road somewhere. He don't never take the time to just sit still. He's always driving, so I could do that for him. If we was going somewhere together, I could drive with him, no question asked. No problem, no attitude. I could drive for him. Another thing is initiating. Initiating? What do I look like? Like, no, I'm not initiating with nothing with no men. But I pretty much had to plan the whole date out. I even had to take initiative in choosing because I gave him options. I could pay for a hair retwist. I could pay for a barbershop visit. I could pay for a massage, or I could pay for a pedicure. I gave him 2 options to choose 2 of those 4. He didn't choose nothing, so I had to choose for him. And I had to choose based off the fact that he not gonna just let anybody in his hair. He not gonna just go to any barber. So let me just make life easier for me and just choose something for him and then just tell him to show up. I initiated making reservations. Oh my. Making reservations? Me? No, I don't do that. The man makes the reservations and he tells me to show up. But I made reservations. It's even another thing. Y'all see how dramatic I am. So I'm a very expressive person. When I'm happy, I'm ecstatic. We doing cartwheels in the air. When I'm mad, call the law. When I'm sad, call therapy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I take every emotion to the extreme. So when I'm with on a date, I just kept telling, you look so good. You look so handsome. And he's not really that expressive. And last year, 2 years ago, I didn't think that I could be with somebody who didn't match my energy. Because he need to be boosting me up. If I see him pictures, he need to be boosting me. He need to be extra crazy with the energy and everything, because I'm going to be like that with him. But I'm like, that's not his personality. Why would I be upset with him? Not to mention, a lot of times, and us ladies, this is for us, a lot of times we be upset with our men not boosting us up on Instagram, on Facebook, or on whatever social media platform we have. We be mad that our men don't boost us up because we are so pursued by people who are not our men. So yeah, the men who like us, they can be all in our stories, leaving heart eyes. Girl, you look so good. You so fine. I want to take you out. Or they'll be up under your pictures. Girl, you the finest thing I ever seen. Or even when you go to the gas station or you go to a restaurant and the man is just complimenting you and just boosting your ego and stuff like that. And we experience stuff like that. And then we get home with our men who we know are not that expressive. And we get mad that they're not showing us that same attention. These are the men that we chose. They are not that expressive. My best friend told me I look good maybe like 3 or 4 times. He didn't tell me as many times as I told him, but I'm an extra expressive person. So it would be crazy for me to be upset with him not matching my energy, and every time I told him he was fine, he told me I was fine. That would be really crazy for me to be like that. So this is a conversation that I took to God before the date. How should I feel about dealing with a man who's not expressive? As long as he loves me and he respects me and he treats me like the queen that I am and he treats me how God instructs him to treat me, I'm good. Yes, I would love a compliment. Yes, I would love for you to tell me I look good. Yes, I would love for you to tell me that you like my hair. But no, I don't need you to tell me every day that you see me. No, I don't need you to say it 5 times a day. You know what I'm saying? So that's even something that I had to open myself up to. But 2 years ago, a man don't match my energy? Bye. You got to go. Cause it's a man out here who's going to match my energy. Yeah, it's the men that I don't want. The men I don't want going to match my energy because they're trying to be acknowledged and noticed by me. So keep that in mind, ladies. Don't and fellas too, if you tend to have a girl who's not that expressive and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about in these relationships where you're new or your person just don't have nothing nice to say. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the people that we choose. My best friend, he just not an expressive person. Every time I see him, I'm gonna tell him he look good, even when he look raggedy. Cause that's just how I feel about him. That's just who I am. That's not his personality. You know what I'm saying? So when you know your people's personality, you don't go expecting and wanting more based off what somebody else is giving you. Basically, that's what I'm saying. If you know your person is right here at a level 2, but this person over here is at a level 8, don't get mad at your person for being at a level 2. That's his personality. That's what you chose. That's what it is. Leave all the level 8s over here. Girl, just go get your ego boosted and then go back home with your man. Let these men out here boost your ego and make you feel good and then go back home with your man, with your quiet man. And be okay. Be happy with the world. Simple as that, right? But these are questions that I had to bring to God, and I had to show God, or God had to show me, I'm doing it his way. This is who he needs me to be. So the person that I thought I was going to be when I got into a relationship, or the person that I thought I was going to be when I started dating, or who I wanted to date and how I wanted them to be, God is showing me something completely different. And he's asking me to choose his way. Daughter, you had a way. It might have been a good way, but I got a great way. Your way might have been a great way, but I got an amazing way. Just choose me. Choose the way that I'm instructing you to go. Choose the way that I'm instructing you to feel. Choose the interactions that I'm bringing you into community with. Choose that. Social media will make us feel like things are supposed to look a certain way. No, that's not the case. And this is why you have to be willing to choose God versus the world, because the world will make you feel crazy for accepting anything less than that. But this holds so much more weight. This is so much healthier. This is so much godlier. This way, this God's way. So, yes, choose God. And I got some scriptures to back up everything that I said. So, one of the things that I want to remind you that we are going to live amongst the ways that are not of God, right? God says that right here in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 9. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, be very careful not to imitate the detestable customs of the nations living there, right? There's a way of the world, but there's a way of God. You being godly and holy and set apart does not mean that you are going to be separated from everything that's going on in the world. You are going to be set apart, but live right here amongst everything else going on in the world. And you are going to have to choose God's way. You're going to have to ask God for strength and wisdom to make better decisions while you're living amongst this type of stuff. And let me just say here, when you don't choose God's way, you are a prostitute. You are an adulterer, right? So let's break it down, because God calls Jesus the husband, and the church is the bride, right? So as the bride, when I choose Jesus, I'm worshiping him. I'm faithful to him. We are in a committed marriage. I'm faithful to him when I choose him. When I choose the world, I am cheating on Jesus. When I choose the world, I am prostituting myself to the world. Guys, that's so many places in the Bible, but this is the scripture that God led me to when I asked him if he wanted me to really talk about this stuff here. This is Hosea chapter 5. I'm going to read the whole thing. It says, "Hear this, you priests. Pay attention, you leaders of Israel. Listen, you members of the royal family. Judgment has been handed down against you, for you have led the people into a snare by worshiping the idols at Mizpah and Tabor. You have dug a deep pit to trap them at Acacia Grove, but I will settle with you for what you have done. I know what you are like, O Ephraim. You cannot hide yourself from me, O Israel. You have left me as a prostitute leaves her husband. You are utterly defiled. Your deeds won't let you return to your God. You are a prostitute through and through, and you do not know the Lord." The arrogance of Israel testifies against her. Israel and Ephraim will stumble under their load of guilt. Judah too will fall with them. When they come with their flocks and herds to offer sacrifices to the Lord, they will not find him, because he has withdrawn from them. That have betrayed the honor of the Lord, bearing children that are not his. Now their false religion will devour them along with their wealth. That's all I'm going to read. That's to verse 7. So that's Hosea chapter 5, verses 1 through 7. So God has called us prostitutes when we don't choose his way. When we choose to live in a way that is not godly, that is not how he instructs us to live. He calls us prostitutes. He calls us adulterers. He says that we are cheating on him. Right? So I want you all to take into consideration how God deals with people who cheat on their husbands or their wives. Go read in the Bible how he deals with them. So then I want you to think about that, and then I want you to think about how gracious and merciful he is to come back and ask us one more time, can you choose me? I need you to make a choice. And I think sometimes we just get caught up in life and just how the world is, and our fear of God diminishes. He ain't struck me down yet, so he probably ain't gonna strike me down. He ain't did this to me yet, so he probably ain't gonna do this to me. Right? Sometimes because God doesn't act immediately, we just think that nothing is gonna happen, and so we continue living in sin and moving in that sin. Baby, that's God's grace. That's God's favor and mercy on you. You don't want to be without that. You don't want to not have his grace and mercy on you. For him to take his hands off and let the devil get to you, that's not something that you want. Let's be clear. That's not something that you want. And I know that, right? So I know that. So even when I was pushing for me and my best friend to be intimate, I've been said, y'all, one of the reasons why I've been scared to do anything is because I feel like I'm going to get hit with an STD or an unexpected pregnancy, or it's going to be the worst time I ever had. Like, these are things that have kept me from doing anything. And I was willing to risk it. But I know when God moves his favor off of me, that's it. I know that when I become intimate with my husband under the covering of our marriage, I know it's going to be the best time of my life. I just know it. Because God ain't had me not doing nothing for 3 years to not have a great time. It's going to be an amazing time. It's going to be great. I know that. I have asked God specifically for that to be, listen, you have had me not be touched. I need you to make this night to be amazing. Right? So I know that it's going to be a great time. So then I should remember that if it's not up under the covering of our marriage, it's probably going to be the worst time ever. And I'm going to start hating my best friend. Right? We have to find some little things. I know these type of things are funny to think about, but we have to find something that's going to keep us in line with God's will. We got to do something. We got to figure something out. We got to figure something out to choose God on a daily basis. And this is what the walk is. It's a daily walk. You have to pick up your cross every day and walk with God. Luke 9:23 says, "Then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." Surrender and submission is a daily act, a multiple times a day act. With every decision that you make, you need to be choosing God's way. You need to be choosing something that praises him, that honors his name. Right? So it's not an easy thing because, like I said, we live in our flesh. We live in our flesh and we want to do what the world is doing, and we want to do what feels good to us. But God is asking us again, y'all. He is asking us to rededicate our lives to him and just choose him. He's not forcing us. He's asking. Choose what you want to do. I'm choosing God again because I don't got time to be dealing with no extra stuff just because I wanted something that I could have waited for. I mean, I'd have been waiting 2.5 years for it, or 3 years for it. What I'm like, come on. You can't wait another week. You can't wait another 2 months. You can't wait another year. You know what I'm saying? Like, I done been waiting all this time. It would have been a great ending to a great night, but still, I want God's covering over when we go that far. I need his covering over that. So, yeah, God is just bringing us back to choosing him. Choose him. God is asking us to choose him. James chapter 4, verses 4-8 says, "You adulterers, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again. If you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God. Do you think the scriptures have no meaning? They say that God is passionate, that the spirit he has placed within us should be faithful to him. And he gives grace generously, as the scriptures say. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So humble yourselves before God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Come close to God and God will come close to you. Wash your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. Listen, y'all seen he called you an adulterer in verse 4. Just choose God. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not an easy decision, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it walking with him. It's so worth it being used for honorable use. God told me he wants to use my marriage for honorable use. And I'm reminded of, like, I think the forks and the spoons in 1 Timothy or 2 Timothy, where it says, you know, you have your regular silverware and then you have your special silverware that God wants to use for honorable use. He's telling me he wants to use my marriage, me. I'm nobody special, but you want to use my marriage for honorable use? And I'm so willing to mess that up for one night? Like, that sounds crazy. And this is what God wants to do in a lot of our lives. He wants to use us for honorable use. Remember, God uses us to get to other people so that we can call the other people back to him. Don't be so willing to mess up for one night or one day or one paycheck or one opportunity. Don't be so willing to sell your soul, because you have no clue what's going to happen on the other side of that. You have zero clue what's going to happen on the other side of you choosing the world versus you choosing God. I know what's going to happen when I choose God, because he has already promised it to me. He has already promised me a life abundant, exceeding all of my expectations, wealth, favor, grace. He's already promised me that. I have no clue what's waiting on me on the other side of choosing the world. Even if I chose the world for a day. And don't get so caught up in the fact that you chose this today, but nothing happened to you the next day, because you got the rest of your life. Heck, your days could be cut short. You could pass at the age of 50 when you was really supposed to live to 83. You have no clue how God works. You may think you're going to receive a punishment in this area, but he judges you in another area. Oh, I just sold my soul for this one check, so God is just going to take the money back from me. No, you might lose your life. No, your child may lose their life. Like, you have no clue how this works. And I don't got time to be trying to figure it out. I don't have the energy to be trying to figure out what's going to happen on the other side of me choosing the world over God. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that he asked me. He didn't start taking stuff away and say, all right, I'm going to just start taking stuff away till you choose me. He asked me to choose him. And I'm saying yes. I'm saying yes, that I will choose him 20 times over today and 50 times over tomorrow and 80 times over next week. I would choose God and God alone. And you just have to, you choosing God does not take away your flesh. It does not take away your fleshly desires or your wants. But God says if you ask him for wisdom, he will give it to you. If you ask him for strength, he will give it to you. If you cast your cares to him, he will lighten your burden. So you're going to have to do what I did with my flesh. Be honest with God about your desires. Be honest with him about what it is that you are feeling and give it to him. Yes, I went to God and said, Lord, I just really want to be with my husband. I really want to be with him right now. Yes, I had to go to him and say that so that he can lighten that load. So he can lighten the rush that I felt. And he did that. I'm not willing to sacrifice his life, his well-being, my life, my well-being, our alignment with God's will. I'm not willing to sacrifice it for one night. I'm just not. I'm sorry. It's not that serious to me. So, yeah, y'all just, take that into consideration when you are being met with an opportunity over here, but God's word is over here, and you already know what's going to happen when you choose God's word. Don't be so much of a daredevil. Don't be so much of a daredevil where you are willing to see what will happen over here. So, Yeah, y'all, that was such a vulnerable message, but I'm happy if it saves one person, if it helps one person. I'm happy. God will lead you in the way that you should go, right? Because it was tough for me. I ain't gonna hold you. It was tough for me. Yeah, y'all. That concludes this episode. Remember, God has given you a choice, so choose wisely. Choose Him. It's the wisest decision that anybody could ever make. So choose God. Thank you guys for tuning in with me on this episode. I will see y'all on the next episode. Peace, love, and blessings to you all.